Hi there, welcome back to the Calabash, and today we're going to discuss gelatine, and we're going to actually just demonstrate and just explain how we use gelatine here. Obviously the most important thing is you have two different gelatines. You have powdered gelatine and you have leaf gelatine. For most pastry chefs we prefer leaf gelatine, and it comes in that form there. Why do we prefer it? Because it's more unlikely to actually cause little clumps or little undissolved little pieces in your dessert or liquid or whatever you're going to use. This dissolves a lot easier into it. It doesn't mean that powdered gelatine is bad, it's just a little more difficult to work with, and this is also a lot more accurate, okay? Gelatine comes in different strengths. Normally it's around about 90 to 300 bloom, 90 being the weakest gelatine, 300 being the strongest. 300 we don't really use in kitchens. That's more for scientific kitchens, scientific laboratories, and that we normally use around about 150 bloom. 150 bloom is basically a bronze leaf gelatine, and one gelatine leaf of a 150 bloom is worth around about 3 grams of powdered gelatine, or a teaspoon of gelatine, which is around about 15 ml or 1/10 of an ounce of powdered gelatine. That's what the bronze leaf, the 150 bloom gelatine, equals to. Most of our recipes at Le Calabash, and this is why we like sharing this with you, because obviously we share recipes with you, and most of our recipes call for leaf gelatine. Very seldom do we use powdered gelatine. I think the one area where we do use powdered gelatine is when we make our marshmallow. We like to use powdered gelatine when we make marshmallow, but when we make our mousses, or we make our panna cottas, or we make our fruit jellies, we will always use leaf gelatine. So what we're going to do is we're going to now show you how to use these two gelatines, and so easy to work with them. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start doing it. Okay, here we go. We're going to start off with our leaf gelatine and using our leaf gelatine. Leaf gelatine needs to be softened, not dissolved, but softened in ice cold water. Okay, and it's just quite simple. You take it and you just plunge it into really cold water, not room temperature, not lukewarm, cold water. And just plunge it into there, and what that does, it softens it. It'll allow it to just soften and become a soft piece of gelatine. So we leave that. That normally takes around about 4 to 5 minutes before you can use it. We'll set that aside for a second, and what we'll do is go onto our powdered gelatine and work with that. Powdered gelatine, always just dissolve it into a little bit of water, okay, not too much, a little bit of water, and then you just measure off the required amount of gelatine you're going to use. Just measure it off and just spread it gently on top of the water, evenly on top of the water, okay, like that. Really simple. Don't tend to throw it in 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoonful. As I say, just gently over the top, okay? And what we do is that will soften it. So there we have 2 teaspoons of gelatine there. That's what our recipe, let's for argument's sake say that was our recipe called. We just leave it for a second there, and what we do is we will then just melt it and bring it to a jelly form over a very, very gentle heat. Don't be tempted to boil it or simmer it. You just want to warm it through so the gelatine can melt, okay? So there we go. Take it there, little spatula, and you just bring it together. There we go. And just gently melt that into there. Don't viciously stir it with something. It's already melting, and you can already see that dissolving into there. Normally takes a minute or two. and you basically have no more granules, but you'll have a jelly liquid, which you can then just add into your recipe and whatever the recipe calls for. Normally the recipe will always call for you to dissolve your gelatine into it. So let's, for argument's sake, say you were using milk, or you were using almond milk or coconut milk that needed gelatine in it. You would always take a little bit of the coconut milk or almond milk or whatever, rose water or whatever the matter may be, fruit juice, and you just do this with it. Instead of using the water, use a little bit of liquid, and there we go. That's how simple it is. There's my gelatine dissolved. No granules, it's just a gelatine liquid there, okay? So that's what we do there. That's how simple it is to work with the powdered gelatine, okay? But as I say, you've got to ensure that there are no lumps or clumps in there. We'll now go back to our leaf gelatine, and let's just here on this, in this instance, say that we're using panna cotta. We're making panna cotta. So here at the Calabash, when we make our panna cotta recipe, we always use leaf gelatine. A lot of people will always tell us, oh, we don't seem to get the setting right, or we don't seem to get the little wobble right, and it's because they use powdered gelatine. It's far more accurate. So what we've got there is we have our, let's say, our panna cotta mix. We've got our leaf gelatine here, and if you look at the way I'm going to handle this now, really important, just take my hand and I pull it out, and look what we have there. Okay, it's like a jelly, sheets of jelly, okay, but it's not dissolved, it's just softened. And what I do now is I take it and I squeeze any excess water out of it. Okay, there we go, and there's my gelatine. Look at that, really simple, straightforward, doesn't stick to my hands at all, okay? And what we'll do is we take it and we just take it, drop it into our panna cotta mix, whatever our recipe calls for, and just absolutely give it a stir, and it's gone. It's as simple as that. Just virtually just like within seconds, it will melt into your mix, and no clumps at all. The advantage obviously being no clumps, no little lumps, and most importantly, absolutely accurate, okay? You don't have any issue of not being able to measure properly. All you'll do then, take your mix, pour it into a container, the little ramekins for your panna cotta, pour them into them, there we go, okay, and into there they go, and then straight into the fridge, and depending on what bloom you've used and whatever your recipe calls and whatever size of the dish, we will have a nice panna cotta within about 6 to 8 hours. It'll have the perfect, and it'll just drop out. So that's the use of leaf gelatine. As I say, always do read the instructions on the packaging. It's really important. There are so many gelatines out there. Our advice to you is always buy bronze gelatine. If not bronze, silver works quite well, but always around about a 150 bloom is great, and it's really simple to work with. Keep it cooking, and see you soon. Thank you very much for joining us.